This is my 2007 Toyota Fortuner D-4D. It's a 1KD-FTV engine, the 3 liter. And in this video, I'm going to check what difference it makes if I replace the diesel filter that hasn't been done for 17,000 kilometers. So I've plugged in the Techstream and we're going to read the load values before and after and see if it makes a difference. So I clicked on the engine ECU. So now we're going to read the live values. I hope you can hear me over the loud diesel engine. And we'll take a screenshot of the values before and then after we've done a couple of things. Okay, you might not be able to see, but I'll pop it on the screen if you can't. But the load is 28%, and that should be around 10 if I understand correctly. Currently the coolant is at 70 degrees Celsius, so it's a bit cold. I drove a bit earlier. The injector values seems fine. I'll make a different video on that. And I'm also worried a little bit about the injection volume and the feedback volume for idle, but more on that later. And then also the target fuel pressure is a bit high. It should be 35,000 if I'm correct. But all I'm going to look at now is this load value at 27.8. So I'm going to take a screenshot. I'm going to drain some water out. I put a little plastic hose on the drain nut into this bowl, then just pump, and hopefully it's just diesel coming out. We'll check that now, and then just do it like 2.5 turns out. Okay, I don't see much water in there. I hope that dirt was in the bucket. Okay, it wasn't that tight, but it needed 2 hands to break it loose. I'm going to need 2 hands, but we're going to replace the filter. It's straightforward. There's lots of videos on it, and then we'll go back and see what the diagnostics says. Might not make any difference. Don't know what they should look like, but that looks pretty gunky to me. That black stuff there. So this is a new OEM Toyota one. Just look at that compared to the old one. Just priming it, and then we'll go and see. No leaks. Sounds good. If this makes a difference, I'm going to be very surprised, but I've got my fingers crossed. Okay, so there we have it. No difference whatsoever. It's still 27.8% load. The injector values are more or less the same. The injector volume is the same, and the feedback volume for the idle in the injectors is the same. The only thing that changed is the target common rail pressure is now spot on at 35,000 where it should be. But yeah, the load is 28%, so more or less the same. And it doesn't look like anything else has changed. So that means the next thing is to clean the MAF sensor, and I think the big thing that might make a difference is cleaning the EGR. I don't think it's been done recently. And then we'll scan all of this again. So there's no difference, and the main reason why I did this was I've run 2 bottles of Toyota injector cleaner in the last 10,000 kilometers, and sometimes that clogs up the filters if there's gunk further down the line. That's what I've heard. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this filter looks pretty dirty. And then I checked the service history, and it wasn't replaced at the previous service. So that was the last time this was replaced was 17,000 kilometers ago. Now Toyota says 20,000 is fine. I usually replace it at 10,000. So I replaced it. I was hoping that would make a difference, but I suspect that load has to do with the EGR that's dirty. So that is one of the next things that I'll do. But anyways, let me know what you think is the issue with the load, or whether it's a problem, or any of the other values that you saw there. Yeah, cheerio. So interesting update. I asked GPT what it thinks about the 28% load. Then it gave me a couple of things to check with the Techstream. One is the MAF sensor. The reading should be between 3 and 4.5 grams per second. The EGR valve position, check the turbo boost or the manifold boost. The injectors, obviously, which I've checked, and then fuel pressure. So I did all of that. Luckily, I have all the values. And yeah, it's interesting. The MAF reading was 10 grams per second, and it should be between 3 and 4.5. So that could be a dirty MAF sensor, but it could also be that the EGR valve is not fully closing. And that is probably the issue, because the next thing I checked was the EGR position, which is 44% at idle, which is way too high. It should be 0 to 5%. So that is most likely the cause. Then the manifold absolute pressure is 92 kilopascal, so almost a bar. So that is very close to the range of 95 to 100. So that's fine. Then the injectors are all fine. And then finally the fuel rail pressure, the target pressure is 35,000 and the actual pressure 33.3 thousand. So that's very close. They say it should be closer, but it's pretty close. And then interestingly, it just gives me then a priority to check. Most likely culprit is the EGR valve at 44% open, which should be closed. And I think it's going to be super dirty in there. So that's definitely the next thing I'm checking. I'll first do that and then do the readings again, and then I'll clean the MAF sensor so that I can isolate the causes. Anyways, very interesting, and I think, yeah, there we go, final verdict. Primary cause is probably the EGR valve that's stuck open that caused that high load. So that's what we'll do in one of the future videos.